Chandra Maharaj swimwear was my first brand. I designed several collections so far, and from the success of those collections, I went ahead and designed some ready-to-wear as well, and that's Chandra Maharaj Designs. And then I also designed some fitness wear, and that's Chandra Maharaj Fitness. My passion for fashion stems from my lifestyle and the exposure that I have gotten to different cultures and countries and religions and people from the time that I was born until now. I was born in Brazil. I was exposed to fashion there from a very young age. I lived in front of the ocean, which means that was my first real inspiration as far as my swimmer line is concerned. But on top of that, Brazilians are very, very fashionable. Then I moved to Trinidad and Tobago, and I got here and it's a completely different fashion sense. But the colors were very lively and exciting. And so as I grew up, I just kind of developed my own unique fashion sense, and I have always been very passionate about it. And so now that I am able to live my dream and be the fashion designer that I want to be, it makes me very excited and leads me back to that passion that I was born with. I started off with swimwear because one, it was a passion of mine. I was always known for it growing up, and I stole it for a few years prior to me becoming a fashion designer, so it just made sense. In addition to that, it was financially viable. I didn't have the support from big organizations and governments and things like that, and so I had to make step-by-step decisions that made my goal, my dream as a fashion designer, make sense, but also make it happen. So I had to start small in order to grow. So swimwear for me as a stepping stone just made sense. Growing up in Trinidad kind of forced me to find my own fashion sense. I always consider myself as one of those people that kind of stood outside of the box. I never really was into trends, and I never really was into, I mean, obviously some things here and there I would like and I would fall into it, but I always kind of had my own clean, classic type of look. So growing up in Trinidad forced me to figure out who I was. It forced me to create my identity, especially through fashion. And so I oftentimes had to adjust my clothing, I had to cut it, I had to redesign it. I had to design from scratch. I had to create things that I didn't see in the markets here to be able to satisfy my fashion needs. So I think, in essence, it really created the fashion designer that I am today. I am extremely proud to have Trinidadian blood flowing through my veins because of the progress that we have made as a country in the creative arena. Filmmaking, music, fashion, photography. Even our models are gorgeous and are taking over the international market. In the past year, I have traveled to Africa, to New York, to Brazil, and Trinidad and Tobago. And all of those places within their own right have an amazing, what I would call fashion tourism aspect to their location. Africa to me was by far visually the most intriguing and beautiful experience that I have ever had. Aside from the country being the most beautiful country I have ever seen, and the culture being so extremely intriguing, the fashion itself was beyond anything that I expected. Now, I have always been in love with the pictures of the fashions that I've seen from Africa, but having the first-hand experience, seeing the colors myself, touching the fabrics, that to me was extremely inspirational. It was just so beautiful that I would absolutely go back to Africa just to be inspired by them for another collection, if I can. The last collection was actually inspired by Africa. Brazil, on the other hand, is a very different type of inspiration. Brazil is more about the energy of the people and the energy of the culture and the lifestyle. They're all about carnival in their own right, and the colors are also bright, but it's a different tone of colors. And so my inspiration from there, just as important but different. And so I was also inspired by Brazil and the Amazon for my very first collection, which was called Amazonas. Then I was in New York, and New York is a fashion capital of the world. And it's always amazing to be there. It's just inspiring walking the streets and just seeing other people in their fashions. It's not even necessarily a shopping experience, but just being in the atmosphere is extremely powerful for any fashion designer because it puts you in a creative zone. Whether you want to or not, it forces you to go into a creative zone. And while being in Trinidad, of course, is being home and being inspired by the things that you grew up with, the things that you know that's close to your heart, and that you can interpret in many, many different ways as far as your creative heart wants. So that in itself was also very inspiring for me, and that my next collection is inspired by Trinidad. So all of these places gives different inspiration in their own way. There are many advantages of fashion and tourism to Trinidad and Tobago. First of all, money, which would be brought into the country, and that can lead to the expansion of the industry, which can then lead to employment and many, many other things. But there's only positive things that can come out of it. I think that Trinidad and Tobago can be the fashion capital of the Caribbean region. Most, not all, but definitely most of the super talented and known Caribbean designers are from Trinidad and Tobago. Only we haven't had the opportunity for them to show years prior because we didn't have the support and the push forward in the fashion industry. So they left Trinidad and oftentimes showed in Jamaica, other Caribbean islands, Curacao, wherever else they had the platform to show their talent. Now, luckily, we are now developing a fashion industry that is allowing the designers from Trinidad and Tobago to show in Trinidad and Tobago. And so that in itself is a step forward. The world, life, people, cultures, religions, mythology, everything inspires me. I love life, and I absorb as much as I can from my travels, the people that I meet, everything that I learn. And so whenever I design, I pull my latest source of inspiration, the latest thing that to me was so extremely beautiful that it stayed in my heart and I couldn't let go of it. And so I take that and I transform it into my design. Okay, I was extremely frustrated swimwear shopper in Trinidad. So whenever I could go to Brazil to get it, I did. The thing about me is that I like things to fit a very specific way. It has to be perfect. And so I was always very small, and in Trinidad, they only really offered American-style swimwear, which covered way more than I liked covered, and which just didn't fit as tightly as I would. And so I always readjusted things. I always cut things, and I had a tailor that I would go to, and he would just adjust all of my clothing, almost everything. I am unique about my design. I put a lot of thought and good intentions into every single design that I make. I think about every aspect of it. Even if it may seem extremely simple to the buyer, I made it simple for a reason. So I think that at the end of the day, I am really what makes my designs unique. The thought process that I put into it, the intention, the way that I choose the colors, the way that I choose the cuts and the shapes, and the love that I put into it at the end of the day, because I put so much love into my work and I love all of my pieces equally. Okay, Trinidadians love fashion. It's just another way of us showcasing our diversity as a country. And I that shit up.
You roll it? Yeah?